Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are moving way past the initial shock and awe of AI generating text. I mean, that feels like ancient history already. We're diving into this massive, really fundamental shift in how AI is starting to operate in the workplace. We're not talking about simple chatbots anymore.
Not at all. It's a whole new paradigm.
And just think about the timeline for a second, because the speed is what makes this so critical for you to understand. So ChatGPT launched in November 2022. And as we're looking at the source material now, less than, 1,100 days later, the world has gone from simple text to systems that can do autonomous research, multi-step execution, even complex coding.
The velocity is staggering.
It just makes it absolutely essential to understand what AI even means now, operationally.
That is the crux of it. So the mission for this deep dive is really to define this new category, what our sources are calling agentic AI. We're seeing a fundamental shift from AI replacing specified routine tasks, that's automation, to AI, collaborating with us on these messy, ill-defined problems that require real human judgment.
And that's augmentation.
That augmentation. And we're going to use the capabilities of these advanced systems, like Google's Gemini 3, as a lens to really see what this looks like for your organization.
Okay, let's unpack this. So when we talk about the old paradigm, I mean, the AI tools from just a couple of years ago, they were basically reactive.
Totally reactive.
Right. The user provides an input, the system spits out an output, and that's it. The interaction is over. You give it a prompt, you get a paragraph back, end of story.
And that reactive model is exactly what these agentic AI systems are breaking away from. Based on the sources, the core difference is their ability to pursue a goal on their own, across multiple steps without you having to constantly direct them. It doesn't just wait for the next command. It figures out the next 3 steps, does them, checks the results, and moves on.
And this is where that speed of change becomes a real organizational risk, right?
Yeah.
If I'm a company treating this new AI like I treated the old one,
You're missing the point entirely.
I'm just leaving value on the table.
Absolutely. This is so much more than just, an incremental improvement in language quality. It's a fundamental shift in the AI's operational role. We're talking about a system that can start its own actions. Organizations that are still treating these things as like glorified search engines or just a writing assistant, they are going to miss massive strategic opportunities. They're still focused on automating tasks when they should be thinking about augmenting entire roles.
That distinction makes it crystal clear. So if the definition is this autonomous goal pursuit, we need to drill down into how. How does the system actually achieve that?
Right.
The sources identify 5 key characteristics that really separate an agentic AI from, a standard large language model.
And these 5 pillars, they show exactly how the system becomes more of a managed collaborator than just a simple tool. So the first is autonomous planning. This means the AI can take a complex, high-level goal like, say, research the market impact of new regulations in Sector X and find the top 3 investment risks. And it breaks that down into all the little executable subtasks on its own without you having to specify every single step. You give it the destination, the AI maps the route.
That sounds incredible, but, route mapping is still just theoretical, right?
Yeah.
Unless it can actually do things in the real world.
That is the critical breakthrough.
Outside of its own little model.
Exactly. And that leads us right into the second pillar, tool use and code execution. This is its ability to interact with external systems. It can use databases, call APIs, and it can autonomously write and execute its own code to get a task done.
Wow.
We've seen reports of systems like Gemini 3 showing this multi-step planning that involves not just writing a sentence, but writing and executing code, querying data, and then pulling all the results together.
So it's not just talking about building a data pipeline. It's actually building and running it. It's like an extremely junior developer, researcher, and data analyst all rolled into one, but unsupervised.
Precisely. And because it's unsupervised for periods of time, that third characteristic is just essential, iterative refinement. So after it does a subtask, say it runs some code or pulls some articles, the agent looks at its own output and adjusts its approach based on the results. It's self-correction.
So if the data is bad, it tries again.
Exactly. If the data set it queried was incomplete, it modifies the query and tries again. If its first summary missed a key point, it rereads and restructures. And we need that self-correction because of the fourth pillar, which is context management. For any real project, you're not talking about a 5-minute interaction. This could go on for hours or even days.
Right.
The agent has to maintain total awareness of the project state, what it's already done, and the main objective. It keeps that context, which mimics how a human coworker would.
That's the real difference between just asking a quick question and having a partner on a multi-day project. But that autonomy, that sounds like it introduces a ton of risk if it goes off the rails.
It does. And that brings us to the fifth and arguably the most crucial pillar for safety in an organization: judgment about escalation. The agent has to be able to determine when a task is within its ability to handle on its own, like pulling a balance sheet, versus when the complexity or the risk requires a human to step in. It has to know when to stop and ask for help.
What's fascinating here is that ability to self-correct and, more importantly, to know when to stop and ask for help. That's what moves it from being a simple utility to something that really resembles an actual teammate.
A teammate with defined boundaries. And that framework, that idea of a defined teammate, gets to the core organizational shift we mentioned at the start. Organizations have to stop thinking just in terms of automation and start prioritizing augmentation. We really can't emphasize this enough.
So automation is replacement.
Automation is replacement. It's about replacing human execution of specified, routine tasks like data entry. The focus is pure efficiency. Augmentation, though, is about collaborating with humans on those really hard, ill-defined problems that need judgment. Think about a complex legal case or drafting a strategic plan for entering a new market.
Things with ambiguity.
Exactly. The AI isn't replacing the expert analyst. It's working alongside them on a messy problem that neither of them could solve as well or as quickly alone.
So the difference isn't really about the tool, but where you apply it. Automation is for the sort of factory floor of knowledge work. Augmentation is for the executive suite.
That's a great way to put it. And if you only treat Agentic AI as an automation tool, you'll only give it simple, routine tasks, and you will completely miss the chance to use it for high-value strategic work. It forces organizations to rethink how they structure work, how they allocate responsibilities. You have to treat the system like a managed collaborator, not just a tool you turn on.
Okay, so if the goal is augmentation, the collaborative leap, what are the measurable results? Let's talk numbers, because the data really helps quantify this shift. For developers, research on GitHub Copilot, which has some of these early agentic abilities, found that users completed tasks 55% faster than the control groups.
55%, that's huge.
It's staggering. And in professional writing, other studies showed a 40% improvement in task completion time and an 18% increase in quality. Those numbers just redefine what a small team can do.
They do, and those headline numbers are what get everyone's attention. But this is where we get to the real aha moment for anyone trying to implement this. The productivity isn't spread evenly,
Okay.
and this leads to a huge issue the sources call productivity bifurcation. Research found that consultants using GPT-4 were 12% faster on tasks that were within the AI's capability, but, and this is the big but, they actually performed worse on tasks that required expertise beyond the model's training data.
So if the problem is too complex or too new, the AI can actually make things worse.
It can degrade the quality of the final output, which introduces a massive organizational risk. If your junior staff are getting faster on routine work, but your experts are being led astray on high-stakes projects, your gains could get wiped out by one big, subtle error.
That risk is very real.
And that's why the second nuance is so critical: skill-level interaction. For below-median performers, AI assistance gives them a huge boost. It raises the performance floor for the whole organization.
It helps the less experienced people catch up, basically.
Exactly. But for your top performers, the benefits are smaller, and sometimes they're actually negative.
Why would it be negative for the top people?
Because the AI might introduce a subtle error, a hallucination, or a logical jump that isn't supported. And detecting that error requires the expert to spend extra time verifying and correcting the agent's work.
So they become the quality control filter.
Yes, and that can slow them down compared to just doing the complex work themselves from the beginning.
That's a fascinating dynamic. The agent is a great equalizer, which is amazing, but it puts a new kind of verification pressure on your most skilled people. So what about the human experience, the psychology of all this?
Well, on the positive side, the research shows it's significantly reduced cognitive load and stress for routine stuff. Consultants reported being much more satisfied when the AI handled all the tedious, boring parts of the job.
A clear win against burnout.
Definitely. But on the other hand, if all that tedious work is gone, what happens to a worker's sense of professional identity, their value?
Good question.
And this is where we see the anxiety about competence and job security pop up. But there's a deeper paradox the source has documented. Easier work is not always more satisfying work.
Wow. That's a huge philosophical point to come out of corporate research. We all just assumed that making work easier automatically equals more satisfaction.
And it's just not true. A lot of meaning comes from overcoming a challenge, from developing mastery. When agentic AI handles all the heavy lifting, some workers actually report feeling less satisfied. They feel less ownership over the final product.
If you take pride in the climb and the AI just teleports you to the summit, you lose something important. So this all needs structure. How are successful organizations setting up the rules of engagement for these things?
You can't just let them wander around unsupervised. The leading organizations are building explicit governance frameworks, and they're focusing on two key things: capability mapping and authority boundaries. Capability mapping is basically figuring out which tasks an AI can reliably do on its own. There are tools like BCG's Task AI Fit Assessment tool that help you score activities based on how routine they are, data availability, and the consequence of an error.
So low-risk, high-routine tasks are good candidates for AI.
Exactly. And the authority boundaries manage the risk when the AI is working on those tasks. You need clear approval thresholds, like the AI can clean data on its own, but you also need robust escalation rules.
When to call a human.
Clear criteria for when the AI has to stop and request human input. Maybe it hits ambiguous requirements or conflicting data.
And crucially, the accountability has to stay with a person, not the algorithm.
That's the bottom line: human accountability. The person who directs the AI is responsible for the final output. The sources mentioned Goldman Sachs has a policy that any AI-generated content going to a client needs a senior human to review and sign off on it.
This just completely shifts the skills we need. It's not about prompt engineering anymore. That's just a baseline skill now. The real focus is shifting to a broader concept, AI interaction literacy.
Mhm.
So for you managers listening, this means shifting your training budget. It's less about the specific software and more about critical thinking. It's about understanding the AI's limits, recognizing hallucination patterns, and developing that critical evaluation muscle.
Can you spot when the AI is making a logical leap that the data doesn't support? That's the skill we need to nurture now.
Which brings us to what the sources call the development paradox.
Right. If the AI handles all the junior execution work, the stuff that used to teach young professionals the fundamentals, how do those juniors ever get the judgment to become seniors?
Are we accidentally sabotaging our future leaders?
It's a serious long-term risk. But organizations are trying things. One strategy is graduated AI assistance, where juniors start with limited AI support and earn access to more powerful tools as they prove they have the underlying skills.
You have to master it yourself before the AI can do it for you.
Exactly. Another is explicit judgment training, creating structured learning that focuses on critique and evaluation, not just execution. You have to preserve human learning, even as the efficiency goes through the roof.
So when we look at the whole picture, the core takeaway for you listening is pretty clear. We are in the era of the digital coworker. AI is no longer just an executive for specified tasks. It's a managed participant in complex work.
And that demands a long-term strategic shift. The organizations that succeed will be the ones that treat agentic AI as a real collaborator, not just a tool, and invest heavily in human skills like strategic thinking and judgment. This raises an important question, though. The question is no longer if AI will transform knowledge work, but how we're all going to shape that transformation. How do we balance these massive, immediate efficiency gains with the long-term need to preserve human learning and mastery? Your decisions now about how you integrate and govern these systems will literally determine the very nature of work for the next generation.